going to be kind of a lonely meeting if we turn out to be the only ones here.
I know, right?
Not to sell you short, Eli. Thanks for being here.
Usually I'm awkwardly early.
I don't mind being early just for the troubleshooting.
Oh, thanks for getting the meeting started. I appreciate it.
Well, I think the meeting starting was Bill.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I just saw that it was already there when I showed up. I disabled chat for the meeting. The idea being that if it makes it a lot easier for things to end up being recorded properly if it's not behind the scenes.
I appreciate that.
Eli, do you know if people are going to be coming on from City Hall?
They should be.
Okay.
I know we've been having issues with the owl down at City Hall. I think it just fallen, and then the cord for it has just made some connectivity issues, and I think Rick Taft is on that issue. I can call and double check with Bill. I do know, I'm pretty sure he is there. I know Art Bombardier was going to be there. Bill might be just printing stuff out at the moment.
Okay.
We got a new owl because of the tech issues.
Yeah, Eli, if you could follow up, and we're getting close to the meeting start time, just see if you could figure out what's whether there are people in the room there just waiting for the meeting to start.
I'll make the phone call.
Thank you.
Marshall may or may not be joining us, but I know she was joining virtually, so.
Right. Well, I appreciate her trying. I understand it's difficult circumstances.
Yeah, it's very difficult. And I also believe that she's come down sick as well. We're hoping it's not, but.
Michael and Art Bombardier. I'm sorry, Michael. It's been a long day. Bill and Art Bombardier are in council chambers right now. They're just troubleshooting some stuff. They should be with us momentarily.
Okay. Yeah, I think we can hold off starting for a few minutes. 6:30 now. We'll just wait for them to get connected. After all, until one more member is here, we don't actually have quorum. So,
Michael, a quick question for you.
Yeah, go for it.
What is the level of So when does the TAC, because I'm all new to this, when does the TAC need to be involved for design changes to the city, i.e. like a raised speed intersection?
There's not a simple answer to that question.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's something that we should discuss as a group.
Okay.
And Michael, with 3 members present, how many do we need for a quorum for?
All right. So I'm planning on addressing that in the meeting. I'll just say it again. We follow the city's rules of procedure. The city states that a quorum is a majority, and a tie wouldn't be a majority. So I believe that means we need half of our membership plus 1 to be a quorum. So when the meeting starts, my intention is to adjust the agenda to add approving the minutes from the last meeting to this meeting, just so that we can do that. It was inappropriate for us to do that last time, and it didn't count. is my understanding, because I miscounted. I thought there were 5 of us, and there are 6 of us, and so as such, yeah. Anyway, you may have heard when you joined, but we're waiting for City Hall to get connected. There's a connection issue. I see we have one caller on the phone. I just want to, so I don't want to put you on the spot. You're calling in, but it might be helpful for the minutes for us to know who you are if you're going to speak once we get into things.
Okay, yeah, it's Dan Souza from the Pathers and Trail Committee.
All right, excellent, good. Now we'll know who you are. I wonder if I can put like a little note on you.
Yeah, I had to call in. Work ran a little late today, so no Zoom for me.
Well, I really appreciate you showing up, but I'm sorry that we have not got things started yet.
No worries.
Figured out how to put your name on your little phone icon, so now when you talk, the people on the screens will see it.
Sweet, thanks.
Can you hear us from City Hall now?
Hey, welcome. Sorry for the connection issues.
Well, all set, and I apologize. We get sorted out a little bit sooner, but
That's okay. It happens when it happens. Thank you.
Very good.
All right. So it is 6:34 p.m. Art is there in council, right? In the council chambers?
Yes, he is. Yeah.
Okay, great. That means we have quorum. So I'm calling this meeting of the Transportation Advisory Committee to order. Jacob, are you on notes for right now? All right, thank you. All right, first things first, adjustments to the agenda. I have one because I had a nagging doubt after our last meeting about the definition of quorum. And looked it up, and because there are 6 of us, there needs to be 4 of us to have quorum. So at the last meeting, when we approved the minutes from the October meeting, we couldn't, it didn't count. So I want to put first in our approval of minutes section, approving the October minutes. Does anyone else have anything to add to the agenda? All right. Moving on to item number 3, approval of minutes. We'll have number 1 be the October minutes, which went out before our November meeting. So I know I didn't include them in this packet. I assume that people have had a chance to look at those. But if we'd like to hold off on that to approve them later, all right. So I think we might have to, since Jake is doing our minutes now, he may not be introducing as many motions, so we might have to have somebody else introduce a motion to approve those minutes, or I can, apparently, if no one else does. What?
I'd move to approve the minutes.
All right. Is there a second on the October minutes?
I second them.
All right. We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from October. All in favor? Let's see if I can actually see council chambers. Thanks, Art.
There they are.
All right. Great. So yeah, those minutes are approved. Thank you, everyone. Unanimously. All right, on to what is now 3-2, our minutes from our last meeting. This one is a little bit more complicated in that you saw that probably saw that there was a draft minutes and then an amended minutes, which is, it's enough different that it's a separate document. And so what I was hoping is that folks would have a chance to review those, and then we'll have if people are amenable, we'll have a motion to amend the minutes to the second document in our packet and adopt those.
I'd move to approve the minutes of November 17, 2021 as amended.
All right, we have a second.
Second.
Second from Joshua. And with a motion and a second, if we have any discussion of the minutes, I know it's a little more complicated than our normal minutes. I just wanted to have that opportunity. All right, in that case, all in favor of approving those minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that's everyone again. The amended minutes are approved. We'll get the draft removed from those and sent back to Jody. All right, on to item number 4, visitors and communications. Do we have any members of the public here to communicate about something that is an item that is not on the agenda? I'm thinking no, based on what I can see, but if you're here, let me know. All right. Jacob?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair Hellion. I just wanted to note that we did receive a letter from Amy Golford that was noted at last meeting. And I'm not sure if everybody got that, but I did want to note that she did spend a decent amount of time documenting some of the issues in history on Berlin Street and was present at the last meeting. And if anybody didn't get that letter, I'd be happy to forward that along.
Yeah, that might be a good idea to send out again. I think it ended up in people's spam folders
Okay.
for some
Yeah,
reason.
I'd be interested in getting a copy. I don't believe I saw it.
All right, so we'll make sure that Steve is CC'd on that, or in some manner receives it. Great, thank you. All right. We can move on to item number 5, which is the monthly transportation report from the Department of Public Works. And I will hand that off to you, Bill.
Well, it's a relatively short report because our focus this time of year switches to basically trying to make sure that the roads and sidewalks are passable. I meant to get pictures of the signage changes. The stop sign on Merchants Row was also moved to the lowest position.
Oh, great. Thank you.
We're hoping for a notable success. It just hasn't happened yet. But we also relocated one of the signs for the speed enforcement zone, which had actually been set up trying to reinforce reducing speeds coming in tighter to the city center. It was intended to be outbound, and it should be a start and stop location on each end of those enforcement zones. And that's been accomplished. Put up several speed limit signs in the Fecto residential area. And we basically have kind of switched into a winter operations mode. We'll be doing some more roadside cleanup when we have a week like we're having this week. We have not been out once. So all of our employees are delayed, but it means that we have time to work on other things. So we're focused on intersection visibility and lines to sight and potholes.
Yeah, I understand that these reports might end up being short during this this season, but I'm just going to keep a spot on them for the agenda. It's okay for us to rush through them if there's not a lot, but it just seems like it's a it's a beneficial habit. All right, were there for 5.2, were there any new resident concerns that seem like they should come up to our attention since last meeting?
So I had just a brief email from a resident on Cassie Street near the junction with intersection with Onward, asking about some type of traffic calming to be placed there because there's a daycare and folks are very concerned about speeding there. I don't have any proposal for the committee, but I wanted to make that known to the committee that there's a concern out there.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, one request for Bill. Was that a request for just a speed limit sign or a speed indicator sign at that? I'm guessing it's the Charbonneau's, right?
Yes. Yeah. The request came as can we install a speed hump or speed table to do something fairly aggressive. Again, there's a slight narrowing of the street, not enough to actually get people to reduce speed. And so people go through an area with very limited visibility. And it's an issue for turns onto Onward Street as well, because the sight distance there is only about 250 feet. There's the brow of a hill. And so it is a good candidate for some type of intervention.
Thanks. All right, I think then we can move on to our new business. 6.1, we'll have an election of a secretary. It's requested that we have someone from the committee do our minutes, and hey, we're going to do it. At last meeting, Jacob volunteered to do that, yeah, so I think what we'll have is a nomination, and then election, and then we'll have a secretary. So I guess I'm going to nominate Jake to be our secretary. That's my. I'll start that motion. Do we have a second?
I will second that motion.
All right. Are there any other candidates for the position of secretary? Any other nominations? All right. Not hearing any. We'll have a vote on the motion for Jake to be elected secretary. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All right. That's if Jake says okay, that's unanimous. And all right, great. Then there's no need for nay votes. Yeah, you are elected. We have a secretary. Thank you. And also thanks for writing our minutes. 6.2 is to review the proposed Capital Streets, Capital, Streets, Sidewalks plan. I'm just gonna run it all together as one thing. This one came to us as a request from City Council as it's part of their priorities to have not only the Transportation Advisory Committee, but the Paths, Routes, and Trails Committee and the Americans with Disabilities Act Committee give feedback on the 5-year plan for what's going to happen with our streets and sidewalks. And because of it's around the holidays and short notice, we have representatives from those committees here with us, but we couldn't get a whole joint meeting together. So it's the best that we can do under the circumstances. So what included in our packet are the documents that the bill from the department prepared for City Council to review, as I understand, and they were provided to us also. And so now in this meeting, the idea is for us to have looked at those, provide feedback to Bill, but also to have some information for council about sort of what we think of them, basically. And in the packet, I framed it with 2 questions that I was hoping would be good questions to consider, which are not intended to be leading, but are just I'd say these are the questions that we want to answer about a plan. Is does the plan represent responsible stewardship of infrastructure from the perspective of our committees? And will this plan make progress toward the goals in our municipal plan relevant to our committees? And so I included some section of the plan also for reference. And at that point, I think what I want to do is let Bill talk about it, if that's what you want, Bill, and to give some context from the department side. Where did this come from? What's the intended audience? What are the constraints? That sort of thing. So I'll let you go ahead. Again, if you want to. If you're like, no, I don't want to, just let me know.
I'd be happy to.
All right, great, go for it.
Annually, the city puts a ballot item before the voters of the city on whether or not they'll appropriate a sum of money for our capital needs. It's both equipment, streets and sidewalks. And the intention is to deal with true capital projects. So I also carry in my general fund line items amounts for streets repair, sidewalk repair, and those are intended to be something that maintains serviceability, but doesn't improve or restore the full capacity. So what it does is it just takes the depreciated asset and makes it suitable for continued use without refurbishing it. And each year we try to decide how to allocate that money. This was an effort to look at a full 5-year window, and the streets money is supplemented by funds from our enterprise, both the water and sewer funds. So when we look at a street as a candidate, we also look to see, does it need a new water line? Does it have a sewer line that needs repair? Are there other issues in the street beyond just the street itself and the pavements that should be taken care of? And I didn't realize how much I use jargon until I had a conversation with someone from Vermont Vigor who said, "What's an overlay?" And something I was certain was universally understood. I learned suddenly it really doesn't mean much. So I'd start by just kind of explaining some of the terms. And so you'll see things that say rehab, and that is a street rehabilitation. The city's standard historic method has been removing the pavement, looking at the sub-base quality and making small revisions to it. So we might add 2 or 3 inches of a good material to try to make it a little better. We might actually excavate a portion of the street. We ended up having to do that on Patterson, where we actually take out that old base because it's just not salvageable and it's going to crack the pavement. But it's kind of making do and making some improvement, and those are rehabilitations. There's also a thickness of pavement associated with the rehabilitations. And so we're looking at 2.5 inches in residential areas. And then for high traffic streets, we're looking to go to 3.5 inches. Typically, really high traffic streets that include truck traffic, we should be looking at a 4-inch minimum. So the rehabs have different costs based on the base condition and the pavement thickness. And then the other tool that we use a lot is an overlay. Typically, an overlay means an overlay on the street, unless it specifically says sidewalk. So an overlay is a thin lift of pavement, typically 1 inch. Before you put that 1 inch on, you do something called shimmy. And Best to take the rain ruts and things out of the road before you put on that 1 inch, so they're not there when you get done. And it's a thin pavement. It has a typical life of only 5 to 7 years, but it stops pothole patching, and it basically makes the road passable without as much noise. So the city had avoided overlays substantially in its streets program up until I've been here for about 2.5 years, at which point the direction of funding and the amount of funding suggested we can't fix our way out of this, and what we have to do is figure out how to make the most of the dollars we have, and then look for some other tools. So we're adding some overlays on streets. It's such a good idea that we're adding overlays onto sidewalks as well. So a concrete sidewalk is about 1.3 or 1.4 times more expensive than an asphalt sidewalk. A concrete sidewalk has a life typically of 30 to 50 years. An asphalt sidewalk has a life of about 20 years. And so we're trying to balance the dollars we have with what we can get out of it. We have a lot of older concrete sidewalks that have surface problems. And so one of the things that you can do with them is to rely on the remaining structure of the concrete and smooth up the surface by putting asphalt over it. And that's a good mechanism to address the needs of sensitive populations, because irregularity of a sidewalk is a major problem for people with limited eyesight. Irregular surfaces are difficult to traverse. They aren't a pleasant thing to traverse if you can't see those changes in elevation. And so we've added overlays, and in this context, South Main Street is an example of where we'd like to do that. We have a lot of concrete sidewalk there that has a poor surface condition and could be made much more useful by the full community if we did an overlay. So that's kind of the terminology that's used. We've put them in separate programs. So you see a streets program, a water program, and a sewer program. The streets program is really what we're here to talk about tonight. Those other programs tie into it because we have streets that need work on those other utilities. The funding levels are really disparate. The streets is kind of in the middle. Our water fund has in the vicinity of $750,000 a year that we can put into water main repairs. That still doesn't meet the demand we have for a period longer than 20 years to deal with what we know is deficient. At the same time, we only have $50,000 in the sewer budget. And then we're carrying a number that's right around 400,000 on average for the streets program. So we have differing levels available to us. In the proposed, and this was intended to be an out year exercise, so it starts with fiscal year 23. One of the things that I wanted to focus on is not only what streets are in the program, but how the program's distributed. So a couple of things that I'm especially interested in committee opinions about are, is it the right type of projects in this mix? So I think from the Path, Routes, and Trails Committee, I don't see anything here that's dedicated to trails. I see some pieces of sidewalk that contribute to routes that people use. And I'm trying to get a sense of what the committees think are appropriate types of projects to build into this. And I'm also very interested in how people feel we should be trying to distribute the funds among the different purposes. So in fiscal year 23, Warren Street is a major target for repair. The sidewalk on it is in poor condition. There are sections that are structurally unsound. The concrete is cracked, it's heaved, and it has more than surface damage. Roughly a third of the cost in that project is sidewalk. In order to restore the sidewalk, it is 900 feet of sidewalk, so it's a substantial length. But the street itself also has very substantial issues with potholes, and also has some water main issues in parts of it. When I say water main issues, one of our issues is because we're an old city, we have a lot of 4-inch water main in the city, thousands and thousands of feet, more than 20,000 feet. And the current standard for installation is 8-inch. So they've worked, the pipes have outlived their age, and we need to roll those projects in where they fit. In Warren Street, I think there's about 200 feet of water main in one particular segment of it that we would go in and dig that up and repair it first, and then come back and do that street rehab. The sidewalk rehab would go at the same time as the water main. So what we finish with is a smooth road up to a new sidewalk. Midway is a difficult project. There's an existing connection between what was Sheridan Street Extension, now called Quinlan Avenue, and Merchant Street. The grade is about 18%. We cannot get the tower truck up that street. We can get a fire engine up that street. And what goes along with that is it's served by a 65-year-old 2-inch water main that goes literally up 25% grade. So the road project itself, we did a base course now a year and a half ago to make it passable. We still can't get the tower truck up it. We can get an engine up it. It's much easier for people to stop at the bottom because there aren't potholes where they have to stop merging or stopping at Merchant Street. But it was Sheridan Street Extension, and we will be coming to the council with several proposals. One, to maintain the current alignment, which leaves a traffic hazard at Merchant, and one to consider connecting Sheridan to Sheridan Extension as was originally planned. So I don't know, the price on the two is very similar because the difficulty of working on that really steep hill on the side of Merchant Street, even though there's one layer of pavement there, the other segment is almost level. It's less than a 3% grade and would address all of the access issues for emergency services. Pleasant Street, and I don't know, is this the right way to go about this? Would folks like to hear more about each of the projects?
It seems to me like it might be, we might spend a lot of time talking about each individual thing. But if there was an interest in hearing about each of them, I'm open to it. I think it might be better to, from my perspective, to say, let's say broadly, what is in fiscal year 23? We say, there's this many, like projects that are repaving streets. And I think you've covered it for the first couple. But I think we could probably, we might not zoom in quite as much.
Or
it could be driven by questions, whichever you prefer.
Actually, I'd be happy to switch to questions, because that way I'm not talking to people about something they already understand. And
All right.
if we build understanding by questions, it's much quicker.
Go ahead, Art.
Yeah, Bill, are all the years have inflated factors?
So this is not actually including any inflation
Last year's dollars.
Yeah, it is FY22 dollars without any inflation year to year. A second piece, as Art reminded me, is that this presumes that these are self-performing projects, meaning that the labor cost to support these projects comes from DPW staff and is already covered in our general fund appropriation. I can tell you that is unduly optimistic, and Eli and I are working on something that actually extends this project list in time and presumes that a portion of these projects becomes contractually executed, rather than these reflect the materials pricing and direct expense to the city if city forces are used. And I think that's unlikely to be the full way we do these.
Erica?
Sorry about that. So from the ADA perspective, one thing that we're always concerned about whenever we hear of the streets being raised is that means curb cuts also need to be looked at. And so one thing that we're always very cautious of when we hear again about streets being raised is that people often forget about the curb cuts, and that, you know, that always raises the price, and often they're forgotten about and they're an afterthought. So one thing I want to be clear about is that if anytime streets are being raised or looked at, that people don't think about curb cuts or driveways or anything like that. And yeah, I see that, you know, we're looking at tactical signs or tactical feelers. That's awesome and all that. But when people are doing any kind of street projects or sidewalk projects, they often don't think about the curb cuts that we so desperately need, not only for people with disabilities, but for others that really use the curb cuts a lot when crossing streets, driving, etc.
Erica, I had a question for you, whether you had any particular thoughts about asphalt overlay on sidewalks. It's not something that, you know, it triggers an accessibility question for me.
It does trigger an accessibility question for me, just being the asphalt is very hard to walk with. It messes sometimes with people that use mobility aids. It's not the greatest of all, not the greatest of all tactile thing for folks who use mobility aids, or people that are people that have trouble walking. You know, when people are thinking of accessibility, you don't always think, you know, don't have to always think about people with disabilities. You think about others, such as elders or small children.
Go ahead, Jake.
On that topic, I was surprised a little bit to hear of a 20-year longevity for asphalt. And I was just curious if that's a northern New England lifespan. And I'll be a little coarse in saying that all the asphalt sidewalks I see in Vermont are in pretty shitty condition, including in the city. And that's true in Johnson, and that's true in Montpelier, and that's true in Berry City. And I don't know if that's more a function of the underlying base, but it seems like, you know, all materials move with weather shifts, and I haven't seen asphalt applied anywhere in Vermont that really functions as a smooth surface for very long, unless it has really good drainage and really good base that has some give to it.
Eric, is your hand still up? Or? Okay. All right.
No, I just noticed that. Thank you.
Sorry.
So I think those are both valid and important things to consider. Generally, the city is not going to be constructing new asphalt sidewalks. The reason that the overlay is appropriate is because the concrete slabs that were placed there were between 4 and 6 inches thick. And what they have is surface irregularity. They don't have a lot of jointing and heaving, but they have an irregular surface. And so what we're trying to do is just get it back to a smooth surface that's readily traversed. It has the firm concrete support from the panel that's remaining, but has a bad surface on it. And the exception to that is Allen Street, which this past year, the city received about $82,000 worth of crushed stone from Velco. They built a substation in Barrytown on the city line. And when they, their Act 248 permit required the removal of that material and restoration of the site, the city actually accepted it at no charge and hauled it back. So we got over 4,000 cubic yards, about 4,400 yards of material. And we actually can build a 12-inch base on the Allen Street site. And we expect it to have, again, a 20-year minimum life. On Beckley Street, we repaved the asphalt sidewalk this year that had been in place for 17 years. It had deformed, and so it had irregularities in the surface that were 1.5 inches or more, and that's outside a reasonable tolerance for a walking surface. It's difficult for many folks, and certainly elderly, as well as people that are differently able to have troubles with something that's that irregular. So we're certainly not going to asphalt sidewalks in a broad sense. Were Allen Street not such a critical link? And again, how Allen Street got to the importance level it has is there are more than 60 homes that are out there. And while the kids can get to the school, they can't get to downtown. We just put the Spalding Alternatives there. And Spalding Alternatives has said some of their students would like to walk to that location, but basically can't because of the street. So that's the type of things that right now are driving the decisions for where stuff sits. I don't have a comprehensive quantitative basis for these decisions. And that's why the committee input is so important. There could be something that I don't know about that's going to happen, and committee members might be able to say, what about this project that's coming? What are you going to do for that? And that's one of the goals of tonight.
Well, thanks, Bill. It sounds like you're really trying to stretch the dollars as far as you can to make the surfaces as level as possible. What's the cost differential to putting down the asphalt versus, jackhammering out the cracks and doing a concrete fill?
So the asphalt goes down, and literally we can get somewhere around 100 feet for a price of about $1,700 to $2,000. To do that 100 feet in concrete, we'll be spending something in the vicinity of $9,000 for concrete, and that's discounting the labor. And that's overlay. That wouldn't be a full new asphalt sidewalk. That's just the overlay versus a concrete replacement. Generally, you don't try to repair concrete because it's really hard to define what to take out and what to leave. And wherever you have those two dissimilar concretes, one is aged and doesn't have a lot of cement left in it. The new concrete has a lot of electrode potential. And so it literally corrodes the old concrete, softens it right where you put the new on it. And you see lives of 5 to 10 years before those things delaminate. So it is kind of a all or nothing with concrete. unless you're going to convert to softer material like asphalt.
Yeah, I think I'm really grateful that you put together this plan. I mean, I think it's so important to see what is, what's in the pipeline and, what we're capable of doing. And I think, like Jake, I'm noticing that essentially what this is an exercise in scrimping. It's trying to get, at least something out of what is it's insufficient resources. Because it seems like in the sidewalks example, I'll say, well, there is a better approach to this, but it is far more expensive. It takes more time, going to take contracting and stuff. There's all these things that that push that out of the realm of the possible for right now. So we do this thing. When I was trying to think about this, about the budget, sort of, we, as a TAC, we spend a lot of time looking at granular details, like, projects come to us, we look at them, we say, how does this fit? How does this, how is this intersection going to work better? But this is an opportunity for us to look at it and say, well, how does this, how does our plan for the work we're doing build to the future? And I think, the lack of resources explains why, when we have a list of things that are, our streets infrastructure is supposed to be moving toward in our municipal plan, the reason it's not in our, on our work plan for what we're going to do is the money's not there. We can't do it. And I think, so when I was thinking about this, the big picture, as Bill, you've said a few times that $40 million is our backlog. And we have other sources of money that come in to to do maintenance, but this is the big nut of what we're doing to make progress is the $400,000, give or take, a year. But if we devote all of this $400,000 to our $40 million surface infrastructure backlog, it will take us 100 years to get back caught up. And that's assuming that our stuff doesn't wear out in the meantime. If we could just pause all of our infrastructure, we have 100 years burning down this backlog. I think it's a little pessimistic. And I also think, I'm aware it's back of the envelope math. I'm not trying to say like, yeah, this is definitively right. But I think it's, Bill, you can certainly correct me. My feeling is it's the right order of magnitude of like, we're, making small contributions to what is a very large problem. And that led me to a second question for myself, which was, all right, so we're in the situation where we have $40 million of deficit of deferred maintenance. How quick are we putting it on? How fast is that growing? I don't have an answer to it, but I figured a good way to sort of to rough that out would be to look at what's the amount of, how much street are we supposed to pave every year? And so the municipal plan has its, has numbers that are in it that says, hey, we have 47 miles of street that the city is responsible for maintaining. If we assume, 10 to 15 years of life for the surfaces, that means every year we should be repaving 3 to 5 miles of street. And it's hard to know exactly, because some of the stuff in here doesn't have, like Quarry Street doesn't have a length on it. But our average for the next 5 years that is listed is just under a mile of what we're paving. So I apologize if this is not news to anybody. It was news to me. So if we're supposed to be hitting 3 to 5 miles, we're hitting a mile. That means that we're only investing 20 to 33% of what we need to just break even. So this is not a problem with your plan, Bill. I mean, your plan seems like it is really responsible and trying to get done what you can with the resources. But it seems like if we wanted to just break even, we need to be doing something, 3 to 5 times as much every year. And if we wanted to, burn down our 100-year backlog, we would need to be doing more as well there. And so my sense is that doesn't mean, hey, we need to throw out this plan, but it does mean when we look at this, the status quo right now, this seems to me like a pretty systemic failure. So I'm really grateful to be able to look at these things, because without this plan, there's no way to make any kind of estimates about, like how far behind are we? How long would it take to pay off? Like those, without what you've provided, there's just no way to know what our situation is. And having this here is a huge advantage to us being able to know, like, well, what kind of changes are actually needed.
So I'd offer that for me, you're preaching to the choir. At the same time, we have to reconcile what our community can support. And I think the value of planning is that we can actually start saying, all right, if we can't afford what we have, how will we make decisions to become affordable?
Right. Yeah, I completely agree with you. Yeah. And I think, oh, sorry.
And I don't know what that is. So I would tell you honestly, we've looked, prior part of my career, we looked at what happens if you give up on pavements and look at more mechanically intensive gravel surfaces. They're cheaper, there's no question. But how could we fit that into our city's plan? For me, another piece to this is we have so many unaccepted streets that the city contributes winter maintenance to. Some of those don't have pavement surfaces anymore. And as soon as I start breaking truck parts or being afraid of hitting houses, we go in and actually protect the city's resources and assets from damage. And so I'm already,
yeah, I am.
The city's, I guess I'd say your administration has been struggling with these issues, and
yeah,
we won't stop.
No, I completely agree. I hear where you're coming from. Jake?
I think the gravel surface is an interesting idea, and generally one that has been applied in more rural settings where they have lots of rural roads that are paved, and then they're finding it much more cost effective. Heck of a lot harder in an urban setting where you'd have to be applying a lot of calcium chloride and grading, and then dealing with the sediment and erosion in your stormwater system. But I do think I want to build on that interesting line of thinking is that there may be opportunities to have street specifications that really put all of our streets on a diet and look at this paving plan and say, do we really need 22 feet of pavement, or are we paving a local residential street that can safely be served and has 2 access points by a much narrower street? And how do we stretch those dollars out through better specifications? I'm also wondering if Bill, if you feel like this really sets a good platform for the Build Back Better bill in terms of kind of identifying projects and being able to signal to whichever entities are going to be administering those funds for local projects. And then just a third thing before I end, and that's that I totally forget what the third thing is. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm glad you got that last one in there. That's good. Yeah. Dan, I didn't see your hand was up. Go ahead.
Sweet. Yeah, I'm on phone, obviously, so I wasn't sure if that was going to work, but I guess I'm curious from a planning perspective, and sorry if this is a known thing or if it's in laws or whatnot, I just haven't read, but are bikes and other means of transportation, rollerblades, skateboards, whatever, are they allowed on sidewalks in the city? Or is there something in there that says they aren't? I'm just curious to, for planning for the PRT perspective.
As I recall, unless someone who knows more, sorry. As I recall, they are not permitted on sidewalks.
Okay. And that's pretty common in my experience. I guess I'm just curious.
I think you're right.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm not committed to that as our being in our ordinance. I think that's just how it is currently.
So
Hi guys, sorry I'm late. I thought there was an exception for young children and families.
I think that you're right. I think there's a children thing.
Because I don't see too many.
Families. Yeah.
I don't see too many 5-year-olds biking on Main Street.
And I had asked this question of our police chief. Larry is with us tonight, and he could comment on it. I actually think there is some allowance for bicycles on sidewalks within the city as well, and it may well be for I'll characterize them as young riders, but from the perspective of trying to deal with this, it's not really a practical thing to implement. So I don't know if Larry would care to. Sorry, Larry.
To be honest with you, I was digging into the policy to see what the policies to see what it said. I'm not aware of any exceptions for bicyclists. My understanding was they weren't supposed to be on sidewalks. So that would be news to me. That's why I was digging into the policy.
Dan, is your hand still up? Oh, sorry.
Oh, if it is, I don't know how to put it down. I can try doing the same thing.
It did it. It worked.
Okay.
You got it.
Okay. Cool. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, I wanted to say that I appreciate what Jake said about finding ways to narrow pavement. I mean, I know it's something that I was talking about before. But part of the reason was looking ahead and being like, we can't afford all of this, can we? And it seems like really clearly, like now that we've got some numbers, yeah, it's there is a point at which it just doesn't work. One other thing I wanted to say before I saw Joshua, you put your hand up, about streets that have been not accepted. I know I talked to you about this before, Bill, but I just wanted to say it again for everyone to hear. My sense is we should not accept any more streets ever. That would be my my suggested policy is, and not cut people off, but to say, as of such date in the future, we're starting this policy. We will not accept any streets, and we'll pay for a contractor to clear your snow for the next 10 years or something like that. But we get the city's vehicles out of the equation, and we say, hey, we've been doing this for a long time. We understand that you're used to it. We're going to give you a time to phase out where the city is, city's maintaining the street. It's not the city's. But at this point, the city has a really developed street grid. Our infrastructure is it's established. I don't think that there's a strong reason to have a policy for accepting streets at all. So that is my position. And Joshua, I know you had your hand up. I don't know if you.
Yeah, do you hear me?
Yes.
All right, good. Bill, I have a question in regards to, you were saying how you approach a street is how much traffic is on that street. So like how you're going to approach to fix it. In regards to how much traffic is on that street, are you also looking into the type of vehicles that are traveling on those streets? Because obviously some streets are getting more heavier vehicles, which can degrade a street faster.
So vehicle type is an important component of that. And so the state's data on I'll characterize them as any of the connectors is pretty good and gives us that both average daily traffic and average daily truck traffic. So it does have an effect. Equally, the speed at which vehicles are moving. So I think Main Street has more than 7 inches of pavement, but if you look at what's happened since the big dig was completed, you'll see that it's rutted at least 1.5 inches now, and this is its second round because it was paved over once. And it's an example where we know that you can't avoid that with an asphalt pavement and heavy weights and low speeds, because the longer a load sits on an asphalt pavement, the more it deflects. And concrete's different. Concrete is elastic. It's not viscoelastic. You put a load on it, and unless you break it, it comes back, and it's at the same height until it wears out. So, but those are choices that get looked at each time we do a major investment. Concrete roads are simply more expensive than pavement roads, and you'll see other states are actually doing the same thing we're talking about with our sidewalks. They're doing that on interstate sections where they're blacktopping white pavements and making sure that you can drive on them without trouble. So, but your point is well taken. Loading and speed and turning movements, particularly for trucks, are all really important to pavement durability. I did want to come back to something that Jake asked about, which was how are we positioning ourselves for Build Back Better and some of the programs that we expect to emerge inside of the next 18 months to 5 years. And so one of the things that we've done is we've really looked hard at our water infrastructure, and part of what drove that is water is very clearly eligible under the current program. The next program we expect to pick up and address wastewater better. But we're in a position to defend virtually any project we need to take on by looking at our water utility and saying, here's the foundational work. And we can assign a portion of the cost. So if I want to repave a street, but I get to change a water line, I can assign the cost of the paving that's above the water line into that water eligible project. So the other piece that we're trying to work on is if we've got $40 or $45 million worth of need, but we can make half of it grant eligible. You know, and that's possible, probably not it is still possible in neighborhoods on the water basis, the water infrastructure basis, but it allows us other tools to literally bargain in that budget process to make things happen. What's hard right now for me is knowing how much and how we would try to prioritize the work. But that's one of the reasons we compiled the 4-inch water line list, was we could easily get 15,000 feet or more of water eligible work defined, and we could base improvements and the portion of the cost for improvements into areas that we know would be grant eligible.
Steve and then Larry.
Yeah, I found in the traffic ordinance, it speaks to bicycles, and it shall be unlawful for any person to operate a bicycle on any way. I'm sorry, I'm quoting the wrong section. It shall be unlawful for any person to ride upon any bicycle, all upon or along any sidewalk. So it prohibits bicycles on sidewalks, excuse me. It doesn't, this doesn't speak to any exceptions for, kids or whatever. So that's just what the ordinance says.
But skateboards are okay.
I'm pretty sure they're prohibited also.
I'll read you the whole thing. For any person to ride upon any bicycle or vehicle of like kind or nature, to include inline skates, roller skates, and skateboards upon or along any sidewalk. That's the part I skipped over, but no, skateboards aren't accepted either.
Is that what you were going to say also, Larry?
Yep, Steve stole my thunder. That's exactly what.
Oh, I'm sorry, Larry. I didn't.
He got it. He got in like 3 seconds before you, and so I gave him the first one. I was thinking about has the the capital plan, including stuff that is in our objectives. And I know that there's just a lot of competition for what needs to be done versus what what is hoped to be done. And I wanted to make another case for Summer Street and Elm Street as in the 2012 plan. There's the crossing and landscaping improvements that I know that those things together probably add up to being more than we want to spend in a given year, but still I think it's a worthwhile thing for us to invest in, because of any change that we're going to make to any transportation infrastructure in the city, that is going to be the biggest bang for our buck. Sorry, I muted myself. Go ahead, Jake.
Well, and I'm unmuted. I was just thinking I did remember my third thing, and that's really, I think I agree that this, you look at the plan and the funding streams, and it's just really inadequate to keep up with what's needed. But at the same time, resources are very, very constrained. The tax rate's high. I know the mayor and certain councilors have talked about looking at a local option tax. And I think, to some extent that helps address a regional equity issue, in that some funding would be coming from, if we had a local option tax, a full local option tax that would dedicated to capital improvements, that it would come from people living outside the city who are using our infrastructure and really don't pay any significant amount for the resources that they use and wear out. So, that might be something that this committee wants to think about, after getting a briefing on what is a local option tax and, what are its pluses and minuses, but endorsing a potential revenue source like that for capital improvements to help catch up on a system that's admittedly been really underinvested in for many decades and is badly behind.
Erica?
No, you brought up crossing on Elm Street. That is probably the biggest thing I hear in my committee, is the crossing on Elm Street and also the crossing on Prospect by the post office. Those are dangerous intersections for not only people with disabilities, but all people. And those are the biggest gripes I hear in my committee. People are almost hit almost all the time. And just putting it out there that we hear it too. They're dangerous.
Yeah, I think it's hard to balance, but making some progress on some of these things is, it should be reflected in our work plan. I know figuring out how to do it is tricky. Go ahead, Joshua.
Jake, what kind of hoops do you have to jump through to get a local option or like a local option tax?
It would be a voter. It'd have to be, as I understand it, and Steve can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it would have to be a charter amendment. And so a charter is a diversion from general state statute to provide a special powers to the municipality. They have to be approved to be put on the ballot by council unless petitioned by the voters. I think maybe 10% of the voters or 5%, and that'd take about 600 signatures. But if council puts it on the ballot, then the voters can vote up or down articles. And we have a local option tax for, I think, meals and rooms, right, Steve?
Yes.
But we don't have a general local option sales tax for other. I think it's just
sale. It's not. We don't have it for general sales.
General sales, and that would be 1% maximum that the municipality could ask for, and then the revenue that would be accrued from that source is estimated to be, was it 800,000 a year, Steve?
Yeah, Lucas came up with a number around 850,000. I'm I'm a little cautious that it's that high, but it's probably 500,000 or more, which would be huge. But it is a two-step process. The voters have to approve it locally, then it needs to go for a charter change. So we would take, understanding a legislative cycle. It probably, if the voters improved it in March of this year, it would probably be March to May of next year before the legislature took it up and hopefully approved it. But they're pretty stringent with taxes, local option taxes. But many communities have them. I mean, we've got it on the rooms and meals and alcohol, I believe. But Williston has it on as general sales. I think South Burlington has it on general sales, and they must be reaping in huge amounts of money.
Colchester too.
Yeah, but it's that's the first couple of times that council tried to implement a local options tax. Sales were included. And it just got soundly defeated. So the last try, third time's a charm, went for just the rooms, meals, and alcohol. And there was a fierce opposition by the Chamber of Commerce. In my mind, I can understand the Chamber advocating for their tax positions, if you will, but their campaign was way over the top. But fortunately, last time it passed. So it's not an easy ask, but it would be huge. And I don't think there's anything that says it has to be dedicated to a particular use, but the strategy in having support or trying to get support for it was if the council made the commitment to use that to support capital improvements, streets, roads, whatever, and not to support general operations. The strategy was that it would be more acceptable.
I wanted to ask a question about the work plan, and probably the answer is obvious. I just want to clarify it. Is Quarry Street listed in both 24 and 25 because it's just going to be paid across 2 years?
The project will actually occur in both of those years. The other thing, by splitting it, it just reduced the impact on the program in any 1 year. So.
Right. Like I said, probably obvious. I just wanted to double check. Yeah, one of the things that I found interesting in looking over the municipal plan, and this was not a thing I remembered having, despite having worked on authoring both of the 2 recent revisions of the plan, is that part of the transportation plan says that the city shouldn't build new infrastructure. It should focus on improving the quality of existing infrastructure. Just just a tidbit. It's in there.
And Michael, just to piggyback on that and your comment about taking over new public streets or roads, I'm not familiar of any community in Chittenden County, at least not in their outer rings, that are accepting any new streets. The expectation is that they're all going to go in as private and remain private, and that's in part because they just don't pencil out for low density residential development. That doesn't mean they couldn't for to have if you maybe are getting to 1/8 acre lots with single family homes valued at $200,000, maybe that would cover the initial capital investment for water, sewer, street sidewalks, street lamps, and the ongoing life cycle depreciation costs. But But those numbers are that type of sustainability has been tough to achieve, and particularly right now with the inflated labor and material costs.
Jake, are you making a distinction on residential streets versus, I'll say, commercial streets? I mean, South Burlington is certainly putting in new streets with their city center development or whatever, but those are not traditional residential. I believe there's some multi-unit housing complexes either constructed or planned for those, but so they're putting in new streets, but they're not residential.
Yeah, they are putting in new streets, but they are principally residential right now. The Newtown Center,
Newtown Center, that's what.
Yeah, and their Newtown Center and their Market Street, I think they now have between Allard Square, a development by Dave Logan, Champlain Housing Trust. It's probably, I think they're probably nearing 200 residential units right now.
Yeah, I meant not multi-unit housing, residential, conventional residential, like you would see in Berry City, single family residences.
Yeah, I don't know what the I don't know what the legal restrictions on my policy suggestion are. So I'm not definitely not saying that but I think that when we're already drowning, it doesn't make sense to be like, oh yeah, pour it's not a big glass of water. You can pour that down my throat. That's fine. So like every street that we take on that doesn't create more value than we have to spend on it is just making us fail harder. And that's
acceptance of new streets is ultimately up to the council. So it's not something that could be done on the department might make a recommendation, but it's not something that's done at the department level. It's clearly the council.
Nor here either. I'm just saying what I would hope the Transportation Advisory Committee would agree with me on. And so far, it is only my opinion about what the policy should be.
So this is a great example of having to kind of straddle that fence line, and so I'll give you several examples, and I'd like to get some opinions about this. We're missing 700 feet of sidewalk between 6th Street and Richardson Road. I've got sidewalk beyond it. I've got sidewalk up to it. The speed limit on the road is 25. The traffic count is over 15,000. Why? And I understand the argument that if you're drowning, you don't ask for a glass of water. But if you're drowning in the ocean, are there times when we should ask for that glass of water? And I look at that 600 feet and I say, what do I get out of that? I get a connection to roughly 40 or 50 homes in the city.
I think it's just 20. I'm pretty sure it's just 20.
I'd love to look because it includes the new Johnson Street, or that street alone has, I think, 8 or 9 houses on it. And the city-town line includes some of the homes on Brook Farm. So I understand it's a small count, but the other thing is that when you look at pedestrian safety, which I think is a good value, that's a difficult road, and that's a really poor alignment right there. So I look at that and I say I have both equity and social value in doing that. And so I'm going to drown anyway. Why don't I do something nice before I go under?
Because there's a better thing that you could spend the money on. That fundamentally, it's always more than just, is this good? It has to be, is this the best thing I can do with this dollar? And we just have much more productive streets that are in need of the money. And I would say if this sidewalk, sorry, does anybody else want to respond to this one? I don't mean to just jump in because I control who has the mic. All right,
I agreed with you fully, so I had nothing else to say.
So I'm just gonna finish on this one. So my feeling is this could be a place where a sidewalk is valuable, but it's primarily not valuable to Berry City. And for the parcels that it does serve, it ends up being a very large percentage of the taxes that they're going to pay into getting it. If they had to say take a special assessment to pay for it, they would probably just be like, no, it's not worth it. I'm not suggesting that they should, because I mean, I think as a city, if we, we'll make the decisions about a collective resource and say, hey, where can we do the most good? But in this case, I think that there's a lot of reasons to say, this is very apparent to us because we drive past it very often, but that doesn't mean it is the highest priority. And I think it keeps jumping in people's minds because of how obvious it is visually, but it's not the most obvious place to spend our sidewalk money in terms of what we're going to get back. So, I mean, I think fundamentally, the thing to keep in mind is that infrastructure is not a gift that we give to the world. It's a tool that we can use to build value. And we get the money back for infrastructure only when it creates more wealth than it takes. And this sidewalk, I think it's gonna benefit some places in Berry City, but not proportional to its cost. And if it was built, I would love to see something like if there was a special zone that was created for the properties of Berry City and Berry Town to fund, say like, yeah, we really want a sidewalk, let's get that built. I mean, there's got to be some kind of way to create a mechanism that will keep that money for that purpose, to maintain it when it needs to be replaced in 40 years or however long it is. Yeah, Jake.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that the city has that mechanism in the charter. I don't think it's been exercised, but there is special language on sidewalk assessments. But
I mean,
to your point, I think
because like hitting the 20 people, the 20 residents in Berry City who are affected by that, that's onerous. That's a lot for the sidewalk. Like that doesn't make sense. But then there's hundreds more houses that would also benefit from it that just aren't inside of our city limits.
Yeah,
sorry to jump in.
I see your point, and I'm for a fix it first policy. Let's get all the infrastructure we already have in good condition before we start to before we add new lanes. Yeah. Because we're just digging ourselves deeper into a hole if we don't start focus on maintaining, and particularly maintaining the infrastructure next to the most economically productive real estate, which is the highest assessed real estate in the city, which may surprise many people as often multifamily dwellings that are not always in the best repair, but yield a good assessment and revenue for the city.
And I'm going to let you go, Steve, but to finish up on this one, the money for this sidewalk is money that should be spent on Summer Street and Elm Street. That's planned. I mean, it's in the plan from 2012. Like this sidewalk construction is not planned. It is a thing that comes up periodically, but it is not something that is, like no one is saying like, yeah, this is the priority for the city. Steve, sorry.
Just a hypothetical question. What if we were able to construct that sidewalk, and I'm not hell bent for leather on that sidewalk, but just as an example and a hypothetical question, what if we were able to get a grant that would fund 80% or more of that construction?
I would say then, why aren't we getting that grant for the stuff that we have planned already? And so it's not like it can't happen. And again, like, I mean, I think it's a good place for a sidewalk. It's just like, the 15th best place for a sidewalk. And so we just should focus on all the ones at the top of the list first.
I mean, if there were a new sidewalk, I'd focus on making sure all the school sites, educational sites, are served first.
Yeah, absolutely. Did our visitors have paths, routes, and trails, ADA, have any thoughts on this one?
No, but I actually have to bow out. I'm sorry.
Oh no, that's okay. It's almost time for the meeting to end. Thank you for participating. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having ADA here.
Good night, Erica.
Night.
Dan, not to put you on the spot, but did you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I mean, nothing immediately. I think a lot of this stuff I kind of want to bring up in our PRT committee and just get other members' thoughts, but I don't have anything great to add at this point. No.
I'll try to make it to your next meeting too, so I can bring things back to this meeting.
Yeah, Yeah, I think that'd be helpful. And yeah, like I said, I'm just curious, or I would be curious on some of my other committee members' thoughts and whatnot too, and just their perspectives.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. Yeah, so I think we've done a good deal of talking on the plan. We've talked about how, you know, it is a good stab at getting stuff done. Is there something that we want to communicate, you know, to Bill or to council as a committee at this point? The reason we're here was council asked us if we had they asked us to review it. So I think that the value that we would provide is if there was something that we were gonna you know, gonna give back to them, basically, as saying this is, you know, this is from the Transportation Advisory Committee.
So I think one of the sidelights of that discussion that you just had is that there was a lot of consensus within this committee to focus on maintaining what we have. And that is simply a helpful observation to provide. So from the staff side, you know, unless I run into a group of people who suddenly can explain why that's an important sidewalk on North Main Street, it's easy for me to say that has a lower priority now. We've had a discussion about it, been some good points articulated. Certainly I need to allow time for other folks to weigh in and not refuse other input, but you know, that was helpful for me, because I really do struggle with some of the equity-based questions around why is it good for those folks but not good for them, and when, you know, that was a very good discussion, because the highlight was if you look at it in a value-based system, you don't get the value back to warrant the expense, and that's just a helpful way to look at it.
Oh, and I would add maintaining stuff, but also improving key things in the process of maintaining. So when I'm talking about Summer Street, I'm not saying like, you know, fix the sidewalks, but specifically, you know, make the bulb outs, calm the traffic. The stuff that's in the 2012 plan isn't just, you know, it's maintenance, but clearly that's not just maintenance like in a strict sense.
It's smart maintenance.
Well, right. I mean, I think if we're talking about equity, the pain people are feeling is, you know, these are dangerous crossings. Like, we can fix that because we know how to make safe crossings, and we have the you know, additionally, we have it planned already, and so there's a lot of room to say like, yeah, this isn't, you know, it's been in the works for a while. Now we're doing it. But I think if nobody else has, so I would like to at least say to council, like the resources that the department has to work with are not enough to even break even, you know, to keep up with the rate that maintenance needs to happen. So if there was any takeaway that I would take from this, it would be that, to say, you know, council, we're paving something like a mile of street a year when we need to pave 3 to 5. Something's got to give, and so basically that's, you know, that's all that I would hope to say. If that's something that we feel like, yeah, go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to put that in a motion. So I'd move that the committee acknowledge all the great work that's gone into this plan, the start of an inventory and a vision for the next 5 years, and that we acknowledge that the resources are really grossly inadequate to even keep up with the maintenance needs in the city.
Oh, and specifically, I think getting some numbers in there might be good. Saying like, we're planning to pave 1 mile a year, but we need to pave 3 to 5. Does that make sense? There's a quote from the plan, right? I mean, I'm sorry, I'm butting into your motion. I apologize.
I'm typing.
Pause for a moment, and then we'll give other members an opportunity to weigh in.
So Henrik moved that the committee acknowledge the work that has gone into the plan, the good work that has gone into the plan, and that the funding resources are inadequate to keep up with maintenance. We're paving 1 mile per year, and we need to be paving 3 miles per year.
Is it per the plan? We need
per the municipal plan. Got it.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's right, but I know at least we do have a document that was adopted by council that says it. All right. Does any other? So, do you want to read that back again? Sorry, and then we can see if there's a second and get discussion.
A motion that the committee acknowledge the good work that has gone into the capital to the plan presented tonight, or I should say presented here, and that the funding resources are inadequate to keep up with maintenance. For example, the city is paving 1 mile per year, and the city needs to be paving 3 miles per year per the municipal plan.
All right. So we have
I'll second that.
All right. Thank you. Is there any further discussion of this motion? All right. If not, go ahead, Art.
Now, this only is good if you have a crisis come up. Where's the money going to come from? I mean, this is only good theoretically.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I think the hope is that we're just saying like, hey, even the baseline isn't good enough. But you're right. I mean, like, what if something really bad happens?
Something else comes up that will have to be done sooner.
Yeah, I think you're making a really good point.
Okay.
All right. So, any other discussion on this motion? Go ahead, Steve. I didn't see your hand up. Sorry. Your background is yellow. So it kind of fades in there. Oh, you're still on mute. Hang on a second. Yeah.
Sorry. I was going to speak to Art's comment, but my mark doesn't go directly to the motion. So you can go ahead and act on the motion, and then I can just speak to what Art had mentioned.
Okay. Yeah, I'll get right back to you. In that case, all in favor of this motion to communicate about the need of resources?
Aye.
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 All right, that's everyone. That's unanimous. Motion is carried. Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, just speaking to Art's comment. Yeah, the reality is that there's always stuff that comes out of the clear blue. This is a plan, at least to provide some guidance, but anytime there's something unexpected that develops, I mean, I've been in the city manager's position for 11 years, and I think every year I've had to deal with $50,000 to $200,000 worth of issues that came out of nowhere. Fortunately, have always been able to find a way to scrape up that money, whether through a state highway aid grant or some other mechanism. But so sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. But the reality is, for an old city like Berry City, you can just plan on $100,000 worth or more of unforeseen expenses that are going to develop during the year, and then you have to find a way to pay for them.
Seems like you could also just plan that, right? I mean, if we can plan for it. Go ahead, Jake.
Well, I just said the manager McKenzie has recommended to council that part of the surplus be used for maybe not necessarily a rainy day fund, but a reserve fund.
Yeah, I think Fred was kind of making a distinction between the caption rainy day fund and reserve fund.
Yeah.
my recommendation, for whatever it's worth, was in the category of a reserve fund. It's just unallocated general fund dollars, and for use in an emergency. Now, somebody may call that a rainy day or whatever, but I sense that Fred was making a distinction between the two.
And Steve's talking about an update from Fred Duplessis, our city auditor, who delivered the audit to the council last night. But though it did sound that the rainy day fund had a little bit more accounting principle guardrails as to how the money could be used, and it'd be less of a slush fund and more for legitimate.
It sounded like it had more restrictions and perhaps was less liquid. But right now, I think ideally by the change to the charter, we could have a reserve fund of up to 5%, which would be about $650,000 with our current budget. So even the 200,000 is, $200,000 is a huge step considering where we've been, but it's not as much as we could allow. And who knows? Fred was saying the same thing. Who knows? In any given year, if something comes up and we have to utilize that or tap into that, then it depletes it a little bit. I mean, it would be nice if we had 3 years of $500,000 surpluses and we could build that reserve up to $500,000-$600,000.
Well, I want to thank you again, Bill, for putting together these plans. I know I said already it's invaluable, but it's invaluable. This is a really great step toward being able to chart a course forward for transportation planning. Was there anything else that anyone would like to add before I move on from this item?
Just to thank you.
Oh.
Just to thank you.
Well, it's you who deserves the thanks. All right, on to number 7. Our next meeting, if it happens at the normal time, normal date, I guess we'd say, would be January 19th of next year. Does that work for people?
Yeah.
All right. Then we will plan to meet on January 19th. Moving on to the roundtable. Oh, sorry, Steve, is your hand still up?
I was trying to find the packet materials for this meeting, and I couldn't.
They're linked from the top of the
the agenda.
The agenda, but also I can give you a PDF version that I think is a little easier, so I can send that to you afterward.
Oh, that would be helpful. Okay.
Yeah, I sent it to the normal list of people who get them, but you're not on that one. Yeah. So I'll make sure you get that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the online version, you have to click links to download other PDFs, and while it's flexible, it's not what you want is one document where you can see everything.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I missed the meeting packet line.
Got it. Yeah, I don't know if it's the right place to put it. I mean. Yeah, I think we did this last time too.
my oversight. My oversight.
All right, great. Yeah. All right, for roundtable, I wanted to say one thing, which was I've been trying to get more information from VTrans on the Merchant Street project in terms of how they got the warrant for the turning lane, but I've not gotten anything yet. I'm still working on it. If anybody else would like to contribute something to the roundtable, go right ahead. All right, seems quiet. Go ahead, Jake.
I'll just wish everybody a happy holiday and a safe one too, especially if you're traveling. And also share that there was a good meeting with Councilor Reel, Councilor Chambel, representatives from VTrans, Transit Division, the hospital, and Green Mountain Transit and the RPC on a transit issue that's occurring up at the hospital, where people are going for emergency services, for emergency medical treatment. But then they get stranded up there, or they are discharged after hours. And it was brought to my attention by a resident in Ward 1, where it's happening almost daily, where people can't be discharged, costing the hospital, $1,500 a day to keep somebody in the ER. And in part, it's because the MyRide volunteers that they depend on, which are, part-time non-union workers who get 56, or not workers, but volunteers who get 56 miles an hour, have really shrunk down as a result of COVID. And so we're trying to collect more data on how often this is happening, and what we can do to have after-hour transit rides in Central Vermont. So it was a good meeting. I don't think there's a quick solution, as there often never is in government, but people are talking across governments and organizations. So it's a promising thing. And I know I didn't mention tonight, but I would be interested if an opportunity did emerge to have much more comfortable transit stops throughout the city that include shelter from wind and rain, illumination, to make the transit rides much more pleasant.
Yeah, those are all in the jurisdiction of Green Mountain Transit, but I mean they install them, they maintain them.
Anyone else have anything to add?
Michael?
Yeah, go ahead. I can't see you because the camera's pointing. Yeah. Okay. go right ahead. Yeah.
Oh no, last month I think I had Bill call you about I got an email from you.
Yes, but it wasn't from me.
Right, it's a scam. I just wanted to let you know. But that happened to Renita Marshall before, and did the same scam, tried to get to me to have me buy things or whatever. And I want to let you know, you might have a virus of some sort.
No, it's not me. I've looked into what the cause is for this. So I sent an email today to Mayor Herring and Rick Taft. I didn't CC you, Steve. It didn't occur to me. But I mean, it seems to me that some actor is scraping the committee website and then emailing the contacts on them as though it's from other committee members. And the reason I emailed them was that I got an email that purported to be from Linda Shambo today, which was, how like that email that was from me that you got, that one was really obviously fake. This one kind of looks like a compromised email account. And so it seems to me like the number of times that people have got these things, it looks like a red flag of someone potentially trying to compromise the city, of somebody trying to burrow in. Because like phishing, you gradually get access to your target through compromising links in a chain until you get to somebody who has the keys to the kingdom. So it seems to me like someone is right now trying to take steps into, like a ransomware attack or something. Yep. So, the emails aren't for me. And like, when you look at the email, it has nothing to do with me. It's someone sending it from a Gmail account, and they're just faking the from header.
If you look at the, I mean, most of those are relatively obvious. I got two today, one with Linda, one from the mayor. And just, I mean,
the Linda one is concerning, I would say. So.
Well, I guess I didn't pay a lot of attention to it. I looked at it and quickly discerned that that wasn't Linda. In fact, if you look at the email addresses of the senders, they don't match who the purported sender is.
The Linda one did. I don't know if it did for you, and so that's why I decided to get in touch with with some people who know a little bit about technology and city government.
They probably come from you because they know you're the chairman. That's public knowledge.
Yes, I know. This is part of what makes me concerned about this attack, is that it's not dumb. it seems to be done by humans, not by bots. So there's a lot of things on this to me that I'm not a security professional, so this is not what I know about, but based on the technical knowledge that I do have, these are things that I would say like are red flags.
Yeah, I agree. I think I received the same one that Art did about the same time. And one came from you, Michael, one from Stephanie. I received an email from Star today or yesterday about getting a similar email. And, you know, throughout my time with the city, probably a dozen all added up.
Yeah,
and they're all tied to city volunteers and employees.
Yeah. So the point that what I was trying to get across to when in the email that I sent to Mayor Herring and to Rick Taft was, we really need to have a contact policy that does not give a direct line to people's personal email accounts, because this is the first weak link in our chain. And I described it as a ticking time bomb. And I don't want to be, hyperbolic, but I actually don't think I'm being hyperbolic. I really, there's enough of these red flags to make me think that it should be a serious concern. Because the emails themselves, they seem dumb. They're, they're easy to identify until they're not. And all it takes is one mistake. Clicking on one link is enough.
Okay, I just thought I'd let you know.
Sorry for going on about it, but thank you. I'm glad that I'm not the source of your phishing email.
No, it's true though, because I just assumed that it was a random thing and they just happened to grab something of mine and shoot it out. But just listening now, it seems like it's a bigger issue, and I think that's what other people are thinking too. It's just one random thing, but you pool it all together, and it's quite a larger effort.
It's definitely targeted. We have this happening at the credit union pretty often, and the fact that they're using all of our names specifically, so it does seem pretty targeted. One thing to keep in mind too is if anyone does get email on their mobile devices, it's a lot harder to tell who an email is from. You don't get the 2-line with the email address next to it. Just something to keep in mind. I have to do a phishing training every year for staff because I'm always worried about this. So just be careful out there.
Yes, absolutely. Well, that was an unexpected aside. All right, but I'm glad Steve is here and he heard about it, so that's good. All right, if that's all for the roundtable, I would hear a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned, folks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, folks.
Yeah.
Night.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
I'll be sending draft minutes in about 5 minutes.
Man, that's fast. I'm never that fast.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks. See ya.